Today, let's turn this into this. Hi, I'm AG with Cutting Edge Quilter. Today I'm going to show you how to make a barn quilt. This barn quilt that I have is about 44 by 44 inches. So about 4 by 4 feet. And so it's pretty big. I have a space on my barn where I wanted to hang one. I have wanted to hang one for a while. And I was given this sign that was unpainted or anything. It's been a few years ago. So I knew whenever I saw that it would be perfect for a barn quilt. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that and show you the process. Then I'll show it to you hung up. We were given this sign a few years back, so it's been sitting on our porch for a long time, and I thought it would make a perfect barn quilt. So what I'm going to do is what I've already done is sanded this really well with some sandpaper, and what I have used is, and I did 2 swipes of each one. So I did an 80, 120, 180, 220, and 320. And I just used my sander, DeWalt sander, and just made two passes each. And now I'm going to use some, it's called the tack cloth, I think it is. I used the air hose and sprayed it down really good, but I also need to use that wipe for, you could feel a little bit of the grittiness in here, so I want to make sure it's nice and clean before I start painting. So my plan is to stain the borders, and then I'll paint the sign. It's a 44 by 44. I'll paint that either a white or a gray. I have the gray, so I kind of want the white, but we'll see how it goes. Then I'll make, what I'll do is use a pencil and draw grid lines to where I want my barn quilt, how I want it to look, and then I'll paint the insides of that, and I'll show you when I get done with that. But this is all nice and sanded and ready to go. Now that it's sanded down really well, what I'm going to use is this tack cloth. I got it from Walmart. It was like $1 or $2, and I'm going to wipe it down real good to make sure I get all of the particles off of the board and stuff, so that way I won't paint over them. Okay, I have this Kills Complete Coat paint and primer that I'm going to use. It's in, let's see what color it is. Looks like chalk gray. This is the paint that I use for my upstairs, my sewing rooms. So I'm just going to use what I have. And then I think when I get done with this, I'll go ahead and, since it's an interior exterior, I will find some, find like a varnish that won't yellow outside. So if this was only an exterior paint, I wouldn't worry about like varnishing or polyurethane or anything like that. But since it's an interior and exterior, I will probably go ahead and do that. Now, everything that I'm using here is water-based. So whenever I find a varnish, it needs to be water-based. So I'm using this for my bottom coat, like my background. And then I'll use a water-based paint for the top, for the actual quilt part of it. So this is called Laurel Tree. It's kind of a sage color, really pretty. That's going to be for some of my blocks, as you can see here. Ignore the several different colors. Really, there's just going to be 2 colors to this. It's just I printed this off in black and white so that it looks like different colors. This is called Rusty Gate. This is my second color. So it's like a burnt orange type color. So those are the 2 colors that I'm painting. And I'll show you in a minute how I'm going to grid off my board here and get it ready for painting. I also have this frog tape that I'm going to use. They said this is better than the painter's tape because you can stick it down and it won't bleed through as much. So we're going to try this frog tape. And And I think that's all we'll need to get this finished up. I'm going to varnish this, or like polyurethane or something like that, but I've got to get the right kind. They said at Home Depot there is a water-based polyurethane, or I guess just urethane. So I'm going to get that, and I'll show you what I get. They said I read online that will not yellow if you get the water-based. So, and this is going outside. The reason, if I just bought exterior paint, then I wouldn't varnish over it. But since this is going outside and this is interior exterior, I do want to protect that paint. But like I said, if this was exterior, I wouldn't worry about it, because it's almost like painting a house, to where, you know, you don't varnish a house or polyurethane a house. So, but since it's also interior, I don't want it to fade over time or wash away. So I'll get to work on that. I found the center of my board, which is right here. I did an X right in the center of it. Found that, and then I drew a line at the intersection. And there's also already a break right there where the boards meet. So that's the other line. So it's like a little quadrant here. There's this top half, there's the bottom half. So now what I need to do is I need to make 8 squares before I can draw out my actual pattern. So I have to get a little bit creative here, because these are 44 by 44. This is a 44 by 44 inch block or square, and this was gifted to me, so the borders are already on there. I could take off the borders, but that would be a whole nother thing. So what I need to do now is mark from this line, so this line right here at the bottom, all the way to that line right here. So this line all the way to the edge. That will give me another intersection right here where I can start making my lines. I'm going to do that with all 4 corners. So I'll go ahead and do that now. But I don't have a ruler or anything that is long enough for this. So I'm going to kind of get a little creative with my True Grids ruler. It has a little lip right here. So I'm going to put those together and just draw as straight line as I can. This is going to be my barn quilt, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's the way I'm going to do it. I need to make an intersection on all 4 corners. So I'm going to do that right now. And that's what it will look like. Pretty lucky again. The boards are pretty even to where the intersection is right here on this line. So I'm going to do that with all 4 corners and see how I go. So now that I have my intersections, which is here, 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 and here, what I'm going to do is make my line up here, because I'm going to make it into 4 grids here. Basically what we did was we drew lines, we sectioned them off. So basically this, and you might not be able to see it, but this is a square, this is a square, and this is a square, and so on. So there are 16 squares on this. We need to make it into 64. So what we're going to do is we're going to section off this part, make an intersection just like we did before. So basically this one's kind of messing with my brain a little bit, since it's already intersected right here. You know, you could pretend like this is a line and this is the line. So it's intersected. So I know all of these are intersected. So basically the lines have been drawn as of these points on going this way, but I need to draw the lines going this way to make, I need to make 64 squares. So I'm gonna just put my board down here. This is This is my ruler. It's the longest one I've got. And put it on the intersections of all of the lines. So you've got this one, I've got this one, I've got this one. And I'm going to draw a straight line, and then I have this one. I'm going to draw a straight line all the way down. I'm going to do that between these lines on, so I'm going to end up making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections here. And it'd probably be best to use a yardstick. I can't find my yardstick, so this is what we're doing. And I'm making sure that it's nice and flat up here, so that way I can get a good straight line down here. And I'm just using this little ruler. Using this little ruler so I can make sure it's nice and flat on this bottom here, and continuing with the rest of my. So you can see here, this is a square, this is a square, this one and this one. I'm going to make the lines all the way across, so that way I have all these little squares that I will end up turning into my pattern. Okay, you can make out the squares now that I made my lines going this way. So I've got these little squares. They measure on this board, it's 40, like I said, 44 by 44. The little squares measure about 5.5 by 5.5. So now it is time for me to use my pattern, and I can kind of draw this one's going to be this one on the far is going to be a solid square with my color on it, and then this won't have anything but the white or the gray, and this one I'm going to make into a half square triangle. So if you see that, I'm just going to draw a line in the center here, and that's going to be my half square triangle. So I know that this part's going to be green, this part's going to stay white. And I'm just going to go down the rest of my board, make my pattern, and then I'll start taping it off. To make it easy, a little easier while you're doing this, you could go ahead and when you make out your grid, you could put that in maybe a different color, maybe a color pencil or a watercolor highlighter or something like that. And then you mark your pattern using a pencil in 2 different ways. I didn't do that this time, but if it's helpful to keep straight of what you need, where you marked off and what needs to be colored, you can do that. Also, what I think I'm going to do is mark off my square, and then I'll put a little drop of paint where I want that to go. So that way I keep that in my head about what color goes where. So what I did was to get things straight in my head about where I wanted things to go. Then I looked at my pattern, and I kind of just started like here first. So here was a line that I drew that just to square off my board. But I know that I need to paint over that, and I just made another line here. Then I colored the edges so that way I know what goes where, and I did that all the way around. It just took me a little while. If I needed to make another line, then I went ahead and did that. Like I said, doing this with the grid, it's very, very easy to see which square needs the line if you follow your pattern. And this one, I have the Electric Quilt 8, and what I did was just found it's called a carpenter's wheel or a carpenter's star, and I just printed out kind of a black and white version of it, and I looked at my squares. I kind of noticed that there was they were all gridded out anyway. So I just looked at my squares, and I know this one was my orange. So that's the edge here, and then this one didn't get anything, so I didn't draw anything on this side. Then this one, you see, has this line here. Let me kind of go back a little ways. This one has this line here, so I have orange, nothing, and then this line. And as you can see, I kind of colored in where I wanted, you know, my colors, so that way I'll keep that in my head too. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off. I'll start with my 4 corners, and I'll tape off with my frog tape the edges. When I do that, what I'm going to do is paint the inside, or paint the edges of my tape with my gray. And the reason why I do that is so that way it won't, hopefully it won't bleed through when I'm painting my color. If you tape it off and you put on the gray, the background color, let that dry, then you paint with the color that you want, it shouldn't bleed through. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Okay, so this is one of the corner squares, and I had taped it all off with the frog tape, and I have found, I used to make signs for a little while, so I have found that if I go along the edge with the background paint that I had on there previously, and just go around like that, cover the tape a little bit, and if I let it dry thoroughly, I mean it has to completely dry before I take the tape off, I found that I don't get, I don't want to say any bleed through, because it seems like I always get some bleed through, but I had a better luck of doing it this way, letting it dry completely without not getting any bleed through. So I'm not going to peel the tape off yet. I'm just going to put my background color on here. I'm going to do all 4 corners like this. I'm going to let this dry completely. I may use, I have this heat gun that I got at Harbor Freight. May use that in between coats. Now that that's all dry with my heat gun, what I think I forgot to point out that whenever you do paint over this with your background, make sure you paint over the tape, so that way it gets a good seal for that. So I'm going to go in with this orange paint. It's called Rusty Gate, and it's like a burnt orange. And I'm just going to do some light coats. So you want to go in pretty light at first, and then you can make it darker as you go. What I'm going to do with this, my plan is to take it in stages. So I've taped off a few of the orange pieces. I can't tape off all of them unless I kind of cut my tape and it just, you know, too much. So I'm just going to do little pieces here. Once, and I painted those my gray color, the background color. Once that gets completely dry, I'm going to paint it the orange color on top of it. Then after that gets completely dry, I'll probably put 3 or 4 coats of this orange color on it to make it stand out really well. Once those get completely dry, I'll start on the other orange pieces to get all of that done. Once everything is done, my plan is to tape off the blocks that have no color in them and paint those gray, just completely gray. So I think once I get all done with all of that, it's going to take me a while. It may take me a few days because you have to let it dry. I do have that heat gun. It works, but still not fast enough. Because I've noticed that with the orange, even though I use the heat gun, it'll still drag some of the gray paint that's not completely dry. in the corners and edges. So we'll just take this a little bit at a time. Might take me a few days, but that's okay. I want to make sure that everything is good and dry and it'll be crisp when I take that tape off. So that's my plan for right now. That's what I've gotten. I've gotten my gray, got taped off here, got my gray put on there. I'm probably going to do a few more coats of the orange in the corners, and then those will be done. The corners will be done, and then I can start to work on everything else. Now you see where there's white on this. I want to emphasize that you can't go heavy with this paint on your first coat, because you want to go as light as possible while trying to cover it. Because if you go too heavy, that is going to bleed under that tape. So you want to go as light as possible. Then once that completely dries, then go ahead and go heavy as you like to do 2 or 3 coats, however many you want, and it looks worse before it gets better. So just wanted to kind of let everybody know that. Just a little tip: make sure you let that dry really well before starting in on another coat. Okay, another tip for getting crisp lines is on your first coat, start your paint in the middle. That way when you get to the edges, there's not so much paint, and so it won't bleed through. So you just start in the middle with the thicker coats, and then work your way out to the edges. So here it is painted. I have all of my colored ones painted. I am going to tape off my gray sections and paint those, because if you notice there's pencil marks on there, I'll probably erase part of the pencil marks, but of course it's going to look better after it's painted as well. And as you can see, there's some areas that I need to touch up. It's like with everything that I do. I don't know about you guys, but seems like everything needs a little touch up after I get done, whether it's seam ripping something when I'm quilting, or no matter what I do, it needs a little touch ups. You see some of the tape brought up some, maybe this wasn't completely dry whenever I put the tape down. I'm not for sure, but that's okay. It's just little spots. So as soon as I get done with everything, I'll show you when I get done. And then the next step is to get that varnish, like I was telling you before, and varnish everything really well so it will be nice outside. My sign is done. Now it's time to, because some of it is interior paint, I need to varnish it or seal it. So what I'm going to use is, and this is what I went to Sherwin-Williams and got this. The guy told me that this will not yellow in the sun. So it's water-based Hellsman spar urethane. It says indoor outdoor, but he said when you use it outdoor it won't yellow. So we're going to trust him on that. If it does, I guess I'll just sand it down and make another one, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put one light coat on, wait about 2 or 3 hours for it to completely dry, and I'm going to put up to 4 coats on this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, wasn't it fun? It was a lot easier than what I thought it would be. I have procrastinated on that barn quilt for a long time, several years, because I thought that it would be harder than what it actually was. With the way that I showed you with the X's and just the grid, there was actually no math involved. So me and quilt math do not get along. So the barn quilt math is the same way. So I thought, well, that would be so much easier. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I made a pretty simple carpenter star. I've always loved the carpenter star pattern. So that's what I used for that one. But there's so many blocks that you can use. You can even paint whole quilts if you want. That might take a little while, but you can do it. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever painted a barn quilt too. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button down below and hit the subscribe to see what's coming up next on Cutting Edge Quilter. Thanks for watching. Happy quilting.